For about 12 years, I wrote an article in Sound Communications magazine. It was the Crystal Ball article. Each January, I come out with an article that talked about what's going to happen over the next year. And at the beginning of that article, I always reviewed the previous year's predictions because as a kid growing up, I would watch TV, and there were always these people that you could pay that would tell your future, or these books that you could buy that were going to tell the future of. What else do you want me to do? All right. There were all these books that you could buy, papers that you could buy, commercials that would talk about people that could tell the future. And I always was curious as to how close they were, but they never, the next year when you'd see that same set of commercials, they would never go back and review the previous year's predictions. So I'm going to start by reviewing sort of where the industry is now. And I think most of this, say first third of this presentation, you're going to probably be familiar with, but some of it may be sort of new to you because maybe you're only focused on one or two segments of the industry. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by talking about sort of where the market is positioned and sort of what happened over the last year specifically. And then I'm going to jump ahead and tell you in each of those separate market segments, again, I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen over the next, and instead of 3 or 4 years, as Sam mentioned, I'm going to actually talk about just the next 12 to 16, maybe 18 months at the most. So, within the last year, here's what's actually happened. The AV industry is finally embracing networked gear. In fact, yesterday, there was a brand new company launched in the market called Ube, that you'll start hearing about, and they are a totally IP-based control system. And in their press release, their target market is, we aim to put AMX and Krystal out of the control system business. It's kind of an interesting concept. It started by the former president of CEDIA, and he's actually going to be presenting it today at the demo show, which is kind of a neat kind of technology thing. Now, do you think they're actually going to do that? Do you think they're actually going to put those companies out of business? It's very unlikely, but the concept is interesting because it's all network-based control. So everything that has a network port, instead of having a central hub, it's on the network, and then all they're doing is providing a user interface on an iPad or iPhone or something else, so you don't actually are connecting with a central computing platform or CPU or any sort of massive individual controller. If you're interested in investing in that company, you can go to Kickstarter because they're actually a Kickstarter product that was launched today, so you can actually look them up and see. So it'll be sort of interesting to watch that. But our industry has finally embraced network technology with HD-based leading the video networking side and AVB leading the audio network side. So if you're in the audio segment of the world, where CobraNet sort of was dominating, they're quickly moving towards an AVB-based networking system where you can put all audio, and for that matter, AVB is actually high bandwidth enough to put video on it. But the video side, AMX, Krystal, Extron, Kramer, companies like that have all embraced HD-based. All their systems that are network-based or have Cat5 outputs are all HD-based systems. The other thing that's happened in the last year is digital signage is still the fastest growing segment of AV. So this is 3 years in a row now, the digital signage market is the fastest growing segment. Last year in AV it grew almost 40%. So that's pretty rapid growth. Worldwide, the digital signage market grew about 18% last year. Now, ProAV market's only doing about 21% of the digital signage hardware. So that means 79% of the hardware being put into digital signage systems is still coming from other segments of the industry, primarily the IT segment of the industry. And less than 10% of the content and service. So we as an industry are only providing somewhere around 10% of the content that's being displayed on these digital signage networks and the service, meaning to keep them operating. The 24-hour, 365-day-a-year service contracts that is maintaining these and keeping these things operational. We're only doing about 10% of that, unfortunately. Meanwhile, at this year's CEDIA show, on a survey that was sent out to all the integrators, the digital signage market was listed as their second biggest market segment. So that's a market that they're actually targeting. So these are guys that are normally doing home systems. Maybe they do bars and restaurants. And they're going after the digital signage segment. So you're going to see more home AV integrators get into the commercial AV space. And the interesting thing about digital signage is probably a good place for them to start for two reasons. Number one, it's all network-based, and the home's been all network for about 2 years now already. But it's also more of a hang and bang-ish style business, if you understand the hardware side of it. Of course, all the service side of it's not, but the hardware side is, so it's a little easier for them to get into. In the world of projection, we now have 3,000 lumens portable projector, which just blows my mind because just 5 years ago, well, even 10 years ago, it would have taken 3 hours to set up something like this, and we had to have all the lights off. In fact, the only reason why they turned down the lights was because the lights that were up here were shining on the screen so bad that we didn't have enough contrast. But we wouldn't even have to do this. We couldn't even have projected in an environment like this without turning all the lights off just a couple of years ago. We also have LED projection is real. I mean, LED lit projection is a real thing and is actually very successful. And you're going to start seeing brighter and brighter LED projectors in the future. And 50% of the projectors that are integrated right now, even though more than 50% are sold this way, which is sort of an odd anomaly that we're not sure exactly why it's happening this way. More than 50% of the projectors being sold are widescreen projectors, but 50% of the installs that are actually being done are widescreen installs now. And sometimes they're actually getting 4x3 screens, but installing the projector as using a widescreen projector because they're also using some other source that needs that extra screen real estate. In the world of monitors, we have something kind of going on that's kind of interesting. Where we all thought plasma would be gone by now. Large-scale production of plasma obviously doesn't exist anywhere else, anywhere in the world pretty much, but what plasma has done is it's moved more and more towards the high end. In fact, plasma has become the differentiator in flat panel display technology. So the large size, the unusual sizes, they're in the plasma market, not in the LCD market. Of course, LCDs are thinner, lighter, and ultimately now brighter with LED-based technology, and that's going to continue, obviously. 1080p is native, and what you're going to see is sort of an industry-wide adoption of 1080p as being a standard resolution within the next 2 years in ProAV spaces. So instead of using wide XGA, you're going to see sort of everybody standardized on 1920 by 1080 projection for everything, and that'll last about 7 to 10 years. And 97% of the market is LCD in the monitor side of the business. So even though there are other technologies out there, OLED is coming about. We'll talk about OLED a little bit later, but 97% of the market right now, even though plasma still exists, is actually LCD. And we've had something else that's kind of interesting. We have the return of the video wall. The video wall business disappeared about 10 years ago, and all of a sudden, in the last year, it's made a big comeback, especially in the last 8 months. So we've seen more video walls put in the last 8 months than were put in over the last 5 years combined. So we're seeing a huge, and I think it started, quite honestly, probably triggered originally a while back by the Krystal Microtiles product, but we have other manufacturers that have focused on that segment of the business and have done very, very well with it. There's no difference now between control and signal routing and distribution. If you recall, there was a time where there were control system manufacturers and signal routing and distribution manufacturers. Now they're all the same. In the last year, pretty much everybody's using the same manufacturer to do both. It's you very seldom see someone order distribution amps and switchers from one company and a control system from another. We're seeing that for the most part, people are ordering those products from the same manufacturer. They're standardizing on one manufacturer to do both. And also tablet interfaces. There's no need to spend $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on an interface now when we can do that on a tablet. Even though we don't necessarily like that from a hardware margin standpoint, it is effective and it does allow you to put in more interfaces, which also gives you the ability to do more support, which is more profitable than putting in products anyway. And the great majority of these are iOS systems. Even though there are Android fans out there, unfortunately you guys only have about 3% of the market share in the AV space. The other thing that's happening is video conferencing has finally become sort of mainstream again back in our market. Now, if you recall, video conferencing was big 15 years ago. Sort of disappeared from our market about 15 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, and went sort of to the phone companies. Remember AT&T used to sell it, and Lucent, and then there was all these individual bells that were selling it, and then it went to the IT market. Now it's come back to AV. In fact, at this year's InfoComm, it had the largest amount of space on the show floor of any individual vertical market product on the entire show floor. It had more floor space than even the projector manufacturer did. So it's kind of interesting as to how that segment of the market is actually taking off again. However, there's some changes going on there. First of all, most of the manufacturers have adopted the Microsoft Link system. That is a communications protocol that means that not the same manufacturer product. So other disparity of manufactured products can work together on the same system. So you can take a brand A, brand Z, and brand L and put them together and they'll work seamlessly together. However, because of Microsoft Link, you see more and more products like this. This is a consumer-based product made by a company called Biscotti. That's a $99 product that you put on the top of your TV, and it turns your TV at home into a video conferencing system, and the native resolution of that display is 720. They're coming out with a 1080 version of it later on this year, or next year. Now, if we don't mind, turn that audio down just a bit. The interesting thing about this product, this Biscotti product, is it has another interesting feature, and that is that it actually has, it's the industry's first loop through HDMI. So what they've done there is they're using the new HDMI 1.4 standard to loop the signal through so that when a call comes in, if you're watching TV, a little menu will pop up and say, do you want to take the call, yes or no? So it's riding on top of everything else that you're doing. Now the reason why I point this out is this is sort of an interface of the future for video conferencing. So it should be a wake-up call to you guys to take a look at things outside of your sort of standard mode of practice right now, because more and more video conferencing is becoming software based. The other thing that's happened is distributed audio has gone not totally to the network, but we see a very rapid movement towards the network. If you take a look at the 5 largest audio manufacturers, 3 of those 5 manufacturers at Infocom launched network-based audio systems. And what I mean by that is audio systems where you can actually individually adjust each speaker and create zones on the fly, as opposed to having to centrally distribute them from an audio distribution system. So I can just loop my network signal from speaker to speaker, have them all network, and then create zones at any moment in time, or put them all together at any moment in time, and also individually control them. And of course, everybody makes speakers now. Even though there's only 3 manufacturers of speakers in the world, pretty much, everybody has a line of speakers, so they're getting them from the same 3 Chinese companies, and you're going to see a lot more speaker manufacturers out there than you ever have. So, let me back up just a second. The most popular AV gear this year has been signal routing and control, mounts and racks, and power management. Now, what's interesting about that is also the most profitable segments of the market are these 3 segments of the market, and I suspect most of you aren't actually focused on these products. Most of you are focused on sort of the glitzy products like monitors and projectors and video conferencing stuff, when in fact it's the glue products where the money is actually being made. It's the products that are sort of behind the scenes where a lot of the money was made over the last year. All right, so let's talk about the future. So let's talk about what's going to happen over the next 12 to 18 months. You're going to see more and more networked AV, and what you're going to see is a group of hybrid products out there. So we have the legacy products out there that do VGA, S-video, composite video, even HDMI and TVI and things like that. And then we have the new way of distributing content through the network, where the content stays on the network and never turns into a video signal, whether it be analog video or digital signal. What you're going to see is a whole set of manufacturers coming out with hybrid boxes. The first of those was actually launched at Infocom this year by Krystal. Their next generation, their newest generation digital media stuff is sort of a hybrid of that, where you're taking analog sources and digital video sources and network content. In fact, at CEDIA, Krystal actually integrated a standard network protocol that's pretty common among the consumer market that will soon be adopted in the professional market. Some of you are already properly putting it in out there, but you're going to see more and more sort of legacy and future network stuff put together into one box, so that we're sort of seeing a network router that can handle analog, digital, and network content. And that becomes the box that we put in all the classrooms and boardrooms and conference rooms or facilities that we're doing. And you'll see more and more of those over the next 12 months. So you'll see companies like AMX, Kramer, as well as a few other kind of surprise companies out there that will come out with legacy products like that, where they've integrated the network and analog and digital content. All right, so and what will end up happening is you're going to see more and more content sent different ways because of that network capability. And we won't necessarily be using cables the way we're used to seeing cables be used. Like for example today, my presentation is being driven totally wireless from my laptop. So as you see when I advance to the next slide, I'm driving this content from this laptop live. And so for those of you who are in the hardware business of only making money driving sales through hardware, this should scare the shit out of you. I mean, do you see what I'm doing here? So my presentation, this is a presentation being driven totally off the network. I'm not using an analog to digital converter. I'm not using a wireless HDMI. I'm taking the content as a network signal out of my laptop and sending it directly into the projector with a box that costs 99 cents that's receiving that network signal and displaying it at 1080p. And I can do this at any resolution I want, and it's in real time. And as you saw, the videos that you saw playing, those were all being streamed in real time across. And it's not a custom network. This is the same network that you guys all have access to with your phones and laptops as well. So I guess I could use this as my controller now. And of course, digital signage, that's going to continue to grow. I'm going to plug my power adapter back in. Give me a second here. In the world of digital signage, we're going to see, again, explosive growth. And what I mean by that is double-digit growth. We don't have a lot of double-digit growth in any vertical market segments in our market right now, and digital signage is going to continue double-digit growth. And there's three areas that you can make money in digital signage: hardware, service, and content. And the content stuff is the really cool stuff because that's where you can get really creative, and the margins in content are 400% to 500%. And I don't think there's a whole lot of other stuff that you're doing where you're getting 400% to 500% margins. And the content is the creative stuff. So that's where you got to hire creative content producers, people that are right now in college that are doing graphics design, or people that are relegated to designing websites but are more creative than that. And you can actually get in the business of generating creative content for digital signage networks, and that's hugely profitable. And that's a market segment that if I were you, I would focus on big time. And don't forget that with digital signage networks, there is the network part of it. So it's not just the hardware side. You're not only selling the hardware, but you're selling the connectivity to the network and the content generation across the network. By the way, the system I'm using here is basically the same kind of system that you would use for a digital signage network. I'm connecting my content to the projector as if it was a digital signage network. And that's the way they do digital signage systems. So, don't just stop at the hardware, think about what's going on in the network as well. Also, we're going to see more and more personalized content where somebody can interact with a digital signage network with their second screen, as the consumer market's calling it, like a phone, right? Where you have the ability to have a second screen interaction so that as I'm seeing content, I can personalize that content to me. So in a retail application, that would mean the phone is interfaced with the digital signage sign, already has my measurements, and can tell me if that particular dress or shirt is in stock at that moment in time in Nordstrom's, as opposed to where it is, so I don't have to actually go find it myself. You're going to see a lot more of that, and that becomes really sophisticated. And that user interface for that network connectivity part has got to come from our segment of the market, or we'll lose that potential. And that uses stuff that you've heard of, NFC, for example, for payment systems, RFID chips, which, most stuff is RFID chip now. You just may not realize at what level. And if you're really interested in this kind of stuff, I would highly recommend that you go to the Digital Signage Expo. That show is dedicated totally to digital signage systems. It happens every March in Las Vegas, and you can just Google DSE 2013, and I would recommend that you attend that, and that will help you understand that market. So in 5 years, digital signage will simply be called advertising. And that's why the digital signage market is through this explosive growth. If you think about the way advertising works now, I mean, how many of you actually watch the commercials that are on your TV? If you have a DVR, you don't have to do that. You skip them. And now if you've got Dish Hopper, you actually can press one button, or you can actually program it where it'll automatically skip commercials for you, so you don't even have to press that 30 seconds ahead button like DirecTV has, or the cable companies have. So what's happened is that advertising is moving from an in-home to an out-of-home experience. And out-of-home experiences are moving from analog or static signage to digital content signage. And we're seeing more creativity there. So ultimately, what we now call digital signage, that industry will be defined as part of the advertising market. So this offers us an amazing opportunity for us to basically be the owners of that intellectual property, so that when the advertising agencies start divvying this segment of the market up, they'll be using us for all the installs and all the management of those systems. So let's talk about projectors. We'll see 5,000 ANSI lumens portable projectors this year. You're going to see 1,000 lumens Pico projectors. Right now, Pico projectors are relegated to little small things that are in the range of 2 to 300 amps lumens. You're going to see a 5,000 amps lumens one come out in about March or April of next year. And prepare for the projector market to basically be commoditized. And what I mean by that is that pretty much they're everywhere. You're going to see them and you're going to have access to them pretty much everywhere. However, you're going to see HD-based T ports integrated into projectors, which will allow us to do more network-based AV system stuff, so we won't have to use the adapters that like what I'm using now. So 5,000 amps lumens portable projectors, 1,000 lumens pico projectors, and once it becomes commoditized, the brand doesn't seem to matter as much. In fact, we see a lot of that already, where there's one manufacturer making 5 different brands. Even though they're not under their own umbrella, they may actually sell the raw components to other manufacturers. And we already see that now, so the brand side of it is not as important. And what you may find is that other companies that right now aren't in the branding market become part of that branding market. So you'll start seeing other brands on those products because they're going to want economy of scale in production, and the only way to get that is to go to places like even Home Depot and Office Depot and places like that. So the next big differentiator will be control system-like interfaces. So what will happen is you'll see projector manufacturers get smart and realize that our differentiator can't be the amount of light we have. Our differentiator can't be the ports that we have. Our differentiator is going to be, now that we don't need signal routing and distribution systems, right? I mean, I'm doing this. So do I need signal routing and distribution if I can do this? So since we won't need that, wouldn't the interface be the most important part? Because for me to get this to there has to be an interface that's simple enough for the average person to use, and I have to know how to interface, I have to know how to turn the system on and get it operational. So then you're going to see more control system-like interfaces. And Krystal and AMX are in a very good position to provide that. You're going to see Krystal and AMX partner with all the projector manufacturers to integrate their user interface experience into the projector so that when you connect it up, if you're using a Krystal touch panel or a GUI of some type, then it automatically just already configures itself and automatically works and appears there as a source. A good example of a simple user interface is the Nest interface that is, I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but this is a network-based HVAC system. So you can put this in your house, you can put this in your business, and it's a air conditioning and heating control system. It's $200. This product was actually designed by the same group of people that designed the original iPod for Apple. They left Apple back in the mid-2000s and started working on this product, started shipping it last year. And this product has an interface very similar to an iPod, but what's interesting about it, while it's sitting in your house, it has motion detectors. So as you walk by it, it knows if you're in your house. If it doesn't detect motion for a certain period of time, it will turn off. So it becomes sort of a green thermostat, for lack of a better term. As it sees motion, it turns back on and it regulates the temperature based on what it knows you like, based on the outdoor temperature. So over the course of a year, it measures the outdoor temperature, watches how you adjust it, and on its second year, you never have to touch it again, because based on the outdoor temperature, it knows what you want the indoor temperature to be when you're home versus when you're away. So it's a pretty interesting, sophisticated product out there. And an interface like this is sort of what I'm talking about that we'll see with systems of the future. And by the way, we are about to see the death of lumens. The specification will finally go away. There will be no need for a specification like that because everything's going to be so bright that it won't matter. We're also seeing a movement towards really creative uses of display technology that truly differentiate the integrator. In this case, we're using projectors as lighting sources. And I want to show you an example of this. This company, Visual Worshiper, did I get too close to that? Sorry. This company, Visual Worshiper, is my favorite in the industry right now that's doing some really creative stuff. So when a church comes to them and says, hey, we want image magnification because we want to try to attract the MTV generation out there to come back to church, they don't say, well, let's just put a screen here. They'll say, well, your entire church is going to be our digital canvas. Is that okay with you? And if the church signs off on it, what you get is stuff like this. So instead of just having 2 screens up at the front of the church, they're projecting on everything. And this is really cool because when you're singing, the actual hymns come up and they appear before you all over the place. And this is sort of has a cool factor to it, but also sort of an art factor to it. And what it does is it sort of creates a very creative environment using technology that we really haven't been able to differentiate much over the years. So he's very profitable and doing very well. And I think you're going to see more applications like this where we're putting in display technology, not just to display image magnification or PowerPoint slides or keynote slides, but also for lighting and effect. So instead of using expensive gobo lights, instead of using expensive high-end lighting systems, we're going to use projection to do that because they can create the color scheme that we want. The other thing I want to sort of challenge you guys to do, since we're on sort of that side of it, is I'd like to challenge you guys to think sort of outside the box, even in your basic boardroom, conference room, meeting room, classroom installs. So I mean, everybody can put a screen in the front of the room, but have you thought about doing this? See, here's the thing. We have all this real estate that's not being used in rooms, and maybe even do something like this. So how many times have you been sitting in a meeting where someone's projected a slide and they moved on to the next slide and you didn't have time to write down the stuff from the previous slide? Well, put the stuff on the side walls. I mean, yeah, it may be a little bit distracting, but in general, that gives them the ability to sort of see the last 6 or 10 or 12 slides that were there, and this differentiates you. The cool thing about this is, 5 years ago, projectors were, $5,000, $10,000 each, so this might have doubled the price of the entire system. Now, you can use $1,000 projectors to do this on the side walls. It doesn't have to be the resolution of the front projector. It doesn't have to have the brightness of the front projector. We use less expensive projectors. We're installing more projectors, which is more revenue, but we're differentiating ourselves outside of the person that never even thought about this. And I would challenge you to do the same thing in the boardroom. So instead of doing this, do something like this. We have short throw projectors that allow us to put images pretty much anywhere now, and we don't have to worry about sort of all the light issues that we used to have to worry about. And then finally, I really like the digital canvas concept. Instead of just hanging a screen at the front of the room, take the whole wall and turn that into a digital canvas. And if you don't know how to do that, talk to Daylight. They'll tell you how to do it. They can give you a screen, whatever size you want. And then continue to project your PowerPoint slides, but fill the rest of the screen with other content in native resolution if you want. If you're using a high enough resolution projector, decorator elements too to make the front of the room look cool, but have a clock up there because there's no clock in the room now, but you still have your PowerPoint slides there. So the only thing that's changing in this type of presentation is my PowerPoint slides. In the monitor world, we're finally going to see OLED technology. I mean, now, I know you've been hearing this for 10 years from the manufacturers, but the fact of the matter is now we see mass production of 30 to 50-inch OLED start in Japan and in Korea. So we're finally going to see OLED technology. The advantage of OLED technology is you get the ability to have flexible displays. That doesn't mean we don't have flexible display technology now. This company here, Nanolumens, who's on the show floor, they're using LED-based technology, and they can make you flexible displays. And they actually are showing a cylindrical display where you can wrap a display around a column, or for that matter, make any shape out of the display. But we're going to see more of our flat panel technologies also move to a flexible display technology. So when I come back and do a presentation like this 2 years from now, that 97% of the market being LCD will probably be more down in the 50 to 60% range because we're going to see a lot of OLED technology. The advantage of OLED, in addition to it being flexible, is that it's bright. And this sort of got kicked off with Christie's microtile stuff and Samsung's square display technology. I mean, those are kind of interesting technology where you can build shapes outside of the normal shapes. These two products will be the fastest growing display products in the market over the next 12 months. In control systems, the consumer interface is going to sort of dominate the pro segment of the market. So as we see more and more creativity on the consumer space, we're going to see that adopted on the professional space. And that's where I'm going to talk about AirPlay. So that's how I'm doing this, by the way. If you have Mountain Lion operating system on your laptop, you can now do this for free. You don't have to pay anything additional. And what I'm doing is I'm using a built-in system from Apple. And by the way, this is not controlling it. This is my Bluetooth receiver for my remote. So that little dongle there. So all I'm doing is I'm sending this content through AirPlay, which is a network standard that Apple developed. It's compatible with all iOS devices. So any iOS device and any Mountain Lion or higher operating system can send content through AirPlay across the network. So what I'm doing is, on my receiving end, all I have on the receiving end is an Apple TV. An Apple TV is a $99 box. It's this big, and all it has is a network port in, or it has Wi-Fi in and HDMI out. So I'm actually taking the audio from this laptop as well, wirelessly, with the video. I'm sending the video to the projector and the audio over there to that panel. And so you can separate the audio from the video. You can have the audio ride on the video, whatever you want to do. So that's how I'm actually doing this. So for $99, I'm doing what used to cost you $400 or $500, and I have to walk around and travel with a whole bunch of boxes to actually make happen, because I'm also doing it in multiple places at the same time. I can send that AirPlay content not just to one display, but I can send it to multiple displays simultaneously. So in the world of video conferencing, the codec is about to become 100% software-based, whereas now we have mostly hardware-based codecs. We're going to see the codec sort of already built into the devices we're using to connect to the internet, meaning the laptops, the desktops, even the iPads and iPhones will have the same codec system that Polycom and Cisco and companies like that use now, integrated into their hardware. And what that means is that the hardware side of the business will all become service providers. They won't be providing the hardware anymore, meaning the connectivity points between the devices. They'll become service providers, because the connectivity from one point to another point is going to be standardized using Microsoft Link or systems like Microsoft Link. So then the important thing is, when I'm connecting multiple sites simultaneously, I'm going to have to go somewhere to actually make that happen. And in that case, that's what those companies like Polycom and Cisco will become. So they'll become more of a service provider. And of course, audio, we're going to see everything go over the network over the next 18. Within the next 18 months, there'll be absolutely positively no reason to use copper to send any audio signals at all. This would just be ridiculous to even consider using it. Everything's going to move across the network. If you're worried about having it ride on the current network, you'll build a separate layered independent network for your AV stuff that's riding alongside of the corporate network or the facility-wide network. And what's happening is that's being driven from the home too. So many of you may not have actually shopped for home AV gear in a while, but when you go shop, you'll see that everything is on the network now. There is no more buying red and white RCA cables to connect things up. Everything is sort of rides on the network, and all we're doing is sending content wherever we want it to go. And it started with AirPlay, or what Apple used to call AirTunes, which was their wireless audio system. And then all the manufacturers followed. We had this company Sonos that came along, which was a completely network-based audio company. It's actually the largest distributed audio system being sold in the industry now, and it has been for the last 3 years. So that segment of the market's already moved, and the corporate side will all obviously follow that as well. And what the key there is the interface. So if I'm a control system manufacturer, I'm in a pretty good place. I'm excited about where I'm going, and I'm feeling comfortable about that. If I'm a programmer, and I'm somebody who can design user interfaces, or I'm a creative content producer, I'm feeling really good about where the market is going as well. But, by the way, some other little market trends. In 2008, we saw the truly beginning of the IT-AV convergence. In 2013, you're going to see the home AV market and the ProAV market convergence happen, where the same products are being used in both spaces, and that includes display products. So manufacturers aren't going to be using separate products in production lines for consumer displays and professional displays. They'll be merged into one production line, and the products will be the same. And that will happen on the networking side as well. The same products you use in the home network side can be used in the commercial side. And there may be different versions of those products, but you'll see companies like Cisco, who build a lot of routers and switches, build the same products for the commercial side as they do for the home side. And they'll be one of those hybrid manufacturers as well. Interesting thing about the network side of the business is that network companies in the last 6 months have reported that their leads have doubled. Have yours? It's kind of interesting. Some segments of the market we're tracking right now are seeing that leads have significantly increased, especially in Northern California, Southeast, but other segments of the market, like in the Northeast, we're not seeing significant increases in leads this year over last year. So we still see sort of a depressed economy, and we don't think that this will all of a sudden correct itself after the election, like it has historically. And we're not experts at tracking this kind of stuff, but we do track the people that do track this kind of stuff, and they all seem to be universally agreeing that we're still another year and a half away from our industry kind of pulling itself out of sort of a recessionary stance that we have now. Another thing I want to talk to you about real quickly before I finish is where there's an amazing growth opportunity in addition to digital signage, and that is green AV. And I'm really going to actually use the term smart AV rather than green AV, because having a product be green, meaning use less energy than the previous generation of product, isn't really that difficult, and it's sort of the right thing to do for a manufacturer to do anyway. But having a product that's smart enough to know what your other products are doing, that's a really cool product. That's that Nest product that I talked about in the home, where it knows if you're home or not. It knows what you like the inside temperature to be based on the outside temperature and the time of year it is. We're going to see a lot more smart AV products in our market. And on the show floor, you're going to see a lot of them out here today. And I would encourage you to ask the manufacturers who are exhibiting, show me your green AV or smart AV products, and how do you determine that they are smart or green. So for example, there are power conditioning products out there, power management products, where you can actually control the individual outlet, not just the strip. You can actually individually address each individual outlet and have that individual outlet actually turn a piece of gear off individually rather than the entire rack. Even that might seem like a small thing, but as you know, products like DVRs, for example, consume an enormous amount of energy even when they're in standby. So I see that as a really cool potential future market. So the difference between a smart AV product versus a green AV product is a smart AV product can actually proactively tell what it is you want to do. So a smart AV system would be one where when the person walks in the room, the system knows who that person is. We can do that using your Bluetooth system in your phone, which can identify you. We can do that using RFID technology that's embedded into ID badges, for example. It knows who you are and sets itself up. And that's the kind of stuff that we will do with control systems and save the client a lot of money because they're actually using less energy or they're using less expensive products than they were before. So turn that into a marketing opportunity. You should market the fact that you do green AV systems, that you do smart AV systems. You can actually sell products that are green for about 15 to 20% more than the non-green versions of those products. And you can also mark up that intellectual property of knowing how to build a system that is actually going to save them money. And it's not difficult to actually show that. You can take a current classroom and put tools on there to measure the amount of energy being used, power alone being used, and then take a new, smarter classroom that actually has power management where it didn't, the older classroom didn't, and you can measure the difference, and typically it's going to be anywhere from 15 to 30% less. So for example, switching a CFL-based display to an LED-based display is going to save you about 40% in just the amount of power being used by the display itself. That doesn't include everything else. So for example, if you put in an audio system that is on all the time versus one that you can individually address each speaker, that's going to cost you less, it's going to cost you a little bit more money, but also bring you a marketing opportunity to sell it for more money. And thanks to products like Wi-Fi and NFC and RFID technology coming into our market over the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to have the ability to have devices that would normally not be compatible with each other be able to talk to each other. So my projectors would talk to my monitors, which are also talking to my document camera, and they know if they're being used or not together. And that's thanks to being able to be having everything on the network. We're actually going to save money in the long run in building systems that are sort of smart rather than just connected. So I know this was sort of fast-paced, a lot of information in a short period of time, but we do have time for questions because the show floor is not open for another 5 minutes. But does anybody have, sir, you look like you were going to raise your hand a little while ago. Do you have a question or no? No? Okay. Yes, sir. Ultra HD, good question. Ultra HD is, okay. Just like 3D TV is marketing hype, Ultra HD is marketing. The content doesn't exist. And what Ultra HD is 4 times the resolution of 1080p. The only place the content exists is in Hollywood. And even the Hollywood produced stuff, when they're putting it out on Blu-ray or they're making it available for streaming, you can't get that content. So the only advantage for you would be to scale that content up. Or you had an application where you're taking multiple sources of content, combining them all in one display, like in a command and control center application. Other than that, it's all I have. That doesn't mean it's not going to catch on, but here's the thing. If you're a display manufacturer, and you're now taking technology you used to sell as commercial display technology, and you're now having to shift and use the same stuff that's consumer display and sell it in the professional market, it's in your best interest to make you guys think that the next big thing is 4 times the resolution of the stuff you can buy at Home Depot. Yes. Right. Okay, so HDCP still exists in networking content. So if I were to actually play a movie from iTunes here, it would only play if that monitor is HDCP compliant, even though I'm connected to that monitor via a network. So HDCP is on the signal all the time, regardless if it's in its HDMI format or digital content format, or if it's in the network format. Also, a lot of people don't know that that also exists now in the analog domain as well. So you can take a laptop that has a VGA port, and on that VGA port, send video VGA to a projector that's not HDCP compliant, and that video won't play anymore. They flipped that switch in January of this year. A lot of people haven't noticed that, but in January of this year, that switch got flipped, and that content won't play. And you'll get a message on the screen that says incompatible. For those of you who want a copy of this presentation, if you scan your QR code, there you can get a copy, and I'll leave that up. The other way is to go to the Almo E4 site. This presentation's up there as well. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Do I have comments? Well, that's Ultra HD, the same resolution, 4K resolution. And Ultra HD is like the consumer version of 4K. Again, the application for 4K displays is high-end command and control center applications. As far as 30-inch, 40-inch, 50-inch, 60-inch monitor at 4 times the resolution HD doesn't make any sense because the content doesn't exist for the consumer application. Yes. Yes. Yeah, besides Apple's AirPlay, are there other wireless HD formats? Yes. Samsung and Google have developed a system, and Microsoft has a system. So there's 3 competing systems that are out there right now that send wireless content through the network. All of them, interestingly enough, do work together, but they are competing systems and they are separate systems out there. So Samsung and Google developed one for the Android platform. Microsoft has developed one for the Windows-based platform. So if you're a Windows user, they have the same type of system. Yes. Yeah, if you're Ultra HD for again, there are applications, but I'm talking about over the next 12 to 18 months, you're not going to see any traction in our market for that. Yeah. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you very much. Y'all enjoy the show. Please go challenge the manufacturers.